Welcome back to The Explainer. I've got a question for you. What if I told you a simple hammer could potentially rewrite all of human history? Today we're digging into a very strange tool that seems completely trapped out of time, an artifact that really makes you question what we think we know about geology and our own past.
So let's dive right in. This is the London hammer. And at first glance, it's just an ordinary iron hammer with a wooden handle. Nothing special. But here's the kicker. The rock it was found in has been claimed to be millions of years old. And that creates this incredible paradox. It's kind of like finding a smartphone inside a dinosaur fossil. How could a modern-looking tool possibly exist long before humanity was even supposed to be around?
So where did this all begin? Well, not in some ancient tomb or a big formal excavation. Nope. Our story kicks off on a casual walk along a creek in Texas, way back in the 1930s. A couple just stumbled upon this weird-looking rock with a piece of wood sticking out of it. They had no idea at the time, but they just found something that would spark a controversy that's lasted for decades.
Now, this thing didn't just pop up overnight. Its journey from a weird rock to a major point of debate took nearly 50 years. It all starts in 1936, when Max Hahn and a friend find this oddity. For about a decade, it's just a curiosity. Then, around 1946, their son cracks the rock open, and boom, there's a whole hammerhead inside. But it doesn't really hit the big time until 1983, when it gets into the hands of creationist Carl Baugh, who puts it right in the public spotlight.
Okay, so once Carl Baugh gets a hold of this hammer, everything changes. It goes from being just this peculiar object to being the cornerstone of a pretty extraordinary theory about its origin, a theory that was a direct challenge to the very foundations of modern science.
And this quote right here, from Baugh himself, it really sums it all up. A monumental pre-flood discovery. See, what Baugh and his supporters were arguing was that this wasn't just some lost tool from the last couple of centuries. No way. They claimed it was hard evidence of a sophisticated human civilization that existed before the great biblical flood. This whole idea of an antediluvian period, a time before the flood, that's a central idea in creationism.
And this is where the two stories just completely collide. The claim places the hammer in geological layers from the time of the dinosaurs, or maybe even earlier. But standard geology tells us those periods are over 65 million years ago, long before humans were even a thing. So you see the problem, right? If the claim is true, we'd have to literally rewrite our textbooks.
So, how do scientists explain this? What seems like a total impossibility? Do they just toss out everything we know about geology and human history? Well, not quite. Instead, they do what scientists do. They start looking closer at the clues, both in the hammer itself and, just as importantly, in the rocks surrounding it.
And the first big clue that something might be off comes from the hammer itself. When experts look at it, they don't see some mysterious ancient design. What they see is a typical 19th century American miner's hammer. The style, the shape, it all points to tools made in that era.
Okay, so that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If the hammer is only a couple hundred years old, how in the world did it get perfectly sealed inside a stone that's supposed to be millions of years old? Well, it turns out the answer isn't really about the hammer at all. It's about the rock.
And the answer has a name: concretion. It's a totally common geological process. The best way to think about it is like how a pearl forms inside an oyster. It's not a super slow, eons-long process like the formation of sedimentary rock. A concretion can actually form much faster when soluble minerals in water harden around a central object, just like a pearl forms around a tiny grain of sand.
So here's how it most likely went down. Picture a miner in 19th century Texas. His hammer slips from his grasp, falls, and gets lost in a creek that's full of minerals. The local limestone starts dissolving in the water, making it super mineral rich. And then, over the next few decades, we're talking decades, not eons, those minerals slowly settle out and harden around the hammer, forming a solid rock nodule that perfectly encases it. Nature basically made its own little time capsule.
And this really gets us to the heart of the whole controversy. It's a clash of worldviews. On one side, you have people who see the hammer as a smoking gun, an anomaly that proves their beliefs. And on the other side, you have people who see it as a puzzle to be solved, a natural phenomenon that can be explained by science.
Let's just lay it all out, side by side. You have these two completely different stories for the exact same object. Is it a pre-flood tool trapped in ancient rock, a relic from some lost civilization? Or is it a 19th century hammer that got encased by a rapid natural process? Every single piece of evidence is interpreted through one of these two lenses.
So when you break down the scientific case against the hammer being ancient, several key points stand out. First off, it was found as a loose rock. It wasn't documented in situ, in its original geological layer. That's a huge red flag. Then there's the metal composition, which has a high chlorine content. That points to modern smelting, not some ancient metallurgy. And maybe the biggest thing of all, the wooden handle has never been subjected to carbon-14 dating, a test that could definitively settle the age question. These are the kinds of points that the pre-flood theory just doesn't have a good answer for.
In the end, the London hammer is so much more than just a tool in a rock. It's kind of like a mirror. It reflects our own biases and beliefs. It forces us to ask, are we willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it challenges our deepest convictions? Or do we just search for evidence that confirms what we already believe is true? The answer to that question reveals a lot less about the hammer and a whole lot more about us.